that the permit was issued to Grace August 1st, 2024. Lamar still had a sign. There was still a sign on the location for Mr. Carlisle's property, correct? Yes or no?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Okay. Any further? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, any discussion amongst the board? Any other questions for the?
I have just a point to make. Sometimes I have no idea what the negotiations were that broke down. That's wholly irrelevant to this issue, completely irrelevant to that. But a landowner has rights, and a single person having monopoly on that during the length of a contract doesn't, in my opinion, doesn't get to extend that. I think that the ordinance doesn't say that it has to say that when they make the structural change that it has to stay with the same company. I think that's clear. It's common for there to be competition, or it's common for things to change hands, just like houses change landowners all the time. And that's how I view that. The permit was issued prior to the removal of the sign, therefore I don't view that as a new sign. I see this as a structural and display upgrade as allowed in section 163.12 and 163.30 that are specific to this exact situation where a static billboard or a static advertising sign is being replaced or upgraded, maintained to a digital display. That's my thoughts on that.
Thank you, Ms. Heim. As a board, I'd like to remind everyone that we are here to determine whether we agree or disagree with the fact that the county issued a permit. That's what we are here to discuss, not a matter of law, as we are not attorneys and how we interpret law. With that being said, do we have a motion? If there's no other discussion, comment, would anybody from the Lamar side like to speak? I'm sorry. From the Grace side, if we have time, well, I know we're running.
Mr. Chair, if you won't allow the property owner to speak.
Okay. Would the property owner like to speak?
Gilly, would there be any objection?
Okay. If you would, please state your name, street address, city, state, and zip code, please.
James Carlisle, 1624 North Lake Drive, Lexington, South Carolina, 29072. Representative of the Carlisle family and the property in question at 1612 North Lake Drive. I think I can clear up a lot of things. I've obviously been involved in this since the original lease agreement that was done with the company. That was done back in 1997, like Mr. McPherson said. And by the way, great, you've done your homework. Everything that you said is factual, and appreciate you doing your job. We had the contract with the initial company, and then it went through several other companies. Throughout those years, that original contract started out at $2,000 a year. And last year, we were getting paid $2,000 a year, 25 years later. That is what initiated the contract talks between me and Mr. Sullivan, which I just met him a year and a half ago. So in his defense, he's not totally to blame for all of the stuff, going awry. We had several conversations over that year trying to get the dollar amount to what was fair market value. They never could get their dollar amount to where it was fair market value. I contacted the county, made sure, because he made it very aware to me. One of his first things he said to me, he said, "You will never get another billboard on your property again if we take this billboard down. We will put one across the street from you." So what we don't have here is misunderstanding. What we got here is corporate bullying. He was trying to convince my family to re-sign with them, and they didn't want to put a digital billboard on it because of the amount of difference in the income that it brings in to us versus the static billboard. They didn't want to pay any extra. So he basically put his cards on the table and told me that he was only willing to pay like $3,500 a year, which is ridiculous. I've done my homework. I know a lot of people around here that own billboards. I'm kin to half the people in Lexington. These people own half of 378. I talked to these people. I know what the numbers were, and I did my traffic research. There's no reason that my billboard it shouldn't be worth as much as one 1,000 yards down the street. Same amount of cars go by. So I did my homework and went to him and talked to him about it, and we couldn't make heads meet. And I told them at that time that I was going to look into getting another company to come in and get me a price on it, at which time I called Hal and Grace Outdoor. They have been very upfront with me, very honest, great people to deal with, nothing but good things to say about them. They assured me how the laws work, the whole 9 yards. They called Mr. McPherson. He assured them the wording of the law, how it worked. I did not want to lose what little bit of income I was getting off this property because I use that to pay my $19,000 a year I pay in property taxes on that property. That helps me out. I'm not a rich man. I'm a hardworking guy. I work 60 hours a week. I would have never done something for my family to have that sign taken down if I wasn't assured by Mr. McPherson and everybody else at the county that I talked to, that basically the way it's worded, all we're doing is replacing one sign with another. If they hadn't have protested this, you probably would have never known that sign would have been replaced. They took their sign down in 3 or 4 days. They could have had their sign up in 3 or 4 days. Most people riding by would have never known that. They would have never known that it was a brand new piece of steel in the ground, which in my opinion, every 25 or 30 years, you probably ought to replace those things because of deterioration of the steel. I don't know if y'all have ever seen how they're installed. They go out there with a big old auger. They dig a big old deep hole down in the ground. They stick a steel tube down in the ground. They concrete around it. They throw dirt around it. Dirt causes rust. Moisture causes rust. So the fact that they're saying that you shouldn't be able to replace a sign is ludicrous. It should be replaced sometimes anyway, simply because of safety. Everything about that sign has been in compliance since it's been there. There's no issue whatsoever with that. The town has come and annexed property all around me. My sign was probably the first sign on that whole strip of land through there. I mean, we're talking, it's been there a long time, it's 25 years. All I'm asking for is the ability to be able to put that sign back where it was at with another company and note it's not closer to the road, it's not higher, it's not bigger. All I want is the same stuff put back. Now, during these negotiations, I offered to buy that sign from them. So we wouldn't even be having this meeting. Y'all wouldn't be having to sitting here and listen to this. Mr. McPherson wouldn't have had to done anything at all. They refused to sell me that sign. It'd been on my property that long, and they refused. He brought in his boss and sat down in my office, which I talked with him for probably an hour, and they made it very clear when they left, they're not in the sign selling business. Instead, they'd rather go spend $12,000, $15,000 to take this sign off my property and then cost this company another probably $20,000 or $30,000 to put a sign back into place just because they are mad because they lost a customer. That's what this whole meeting boils down to. It has nothing to do with misinterpretation of the rules, of the laws, of nothing. It's mad at the world is all it boils down to. It's plain and simple. We have done nothing wrong. The laws are plain and simple. All we wanted to do was replace a sign. And greed and being a bully has caused this whole situation. I think I've said enough.
Thank you,
Does
Mr.
anybody have any questions? Any timeline questions? I applied for the permit.
Yeah, I think, do we have a specific question for Mr. Carlisle? No? I think we're fairly clear on timelines and.
Thank y'all for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Carlisle. Any other